Hello everyone, welcome to another video review. Today I'm taking a look at Transformers Studio Series 72 Voyager class Starscream from the Bumblebee movie. But before we take a look at the toy, let's take a look at the box. So here we have our Studio Series Starscream box. Here is Starscream right on the front. He is the 72nd figure in the Studio Series line. Holy cow, I can't believe Studio Series has been running for like 3 years at this point. It boggles my mind. Of course, as you can see here, he is from Studio Series. He is a Decepticon. His name is Starscream. He is for ages 8 and up. Of course, that's just suggestion. They have to put that on there. He's manufactured by Hasbro. He is from the Bumblebee movie, which says Transformers here along the side. He's from the Generations line. Studio Series is a sub-theme of the Generations line. This is co-manufactured by Takara Tomy. On this side, we've got some artwork of Starscream displaying that he is an authentic Transformer. On this side over here, we have a better look at at Bumblebee movie Starscream's face. He has a Voyager class in several different languages. And then on the back, we've got all the things that says what the toy does. You know, he transforms in 31 steps. He has a short bio there if you want to pause it and read it. It comes with a display, and you know, don't eat the toy. Plastic is not easily digestible. And yeah, that's it for the box. So here we have Voyager Starscream from the Bumblebee movie, specifically Starscream as he appears in his Cybertronian mode from the beginning of Bumblebee. It's very interesting, and I'll get into this a little bit more later. But you know, it's interesting that you know we're getting a toy for a character that had around about 3 seconds of screen time in the Bumblebee movie. I think probably the only reason we're getting a figure of him is that is that the sequel to Bumblebee has sort of kind of been in various states of is it happening, is it not, and if it is, when is it happening, for a couple of years now. We're definitely going the longest period that we're going to go without having a Transformers movie in theaters by the time it comes out, and they're working on some others. And then, of course, you know, the pandemic has slowed things down. So in the meantime, they've still had to release toys, and they've gone through so many of these Michael Bay designs that you know they've really had to start dipping into some of the other designs that maybe were kind of in the background of some of the movies. So it hasn't gotten so bad to where we've gotten a jolt yet. So, the jolt from Revenge of the Fallen. We haven't gotten a jolt yet, but I'm assuming that's going to happen one of these days. We're probably also going to end up with, you know, like maybe the ice cream truck of the twins from Revenge of the Fallen at some point. I'm expecting new versions of both vehicle forms for Age of Extinction Bumblebee, something along the lines of that. They haven't really touched Age of Extinction in a while, so I'd be curious to see what they're going to do. But of course, you know, now they're moving into doing Studio Series stuff based on the '86 movie, and so Studio Series is kind of starting to become a little more G1ified, which I have mixed feelings about. But so, you know, drawing us back into here we have a G1ified Starscream, but in a Cybertronian jet mode. So I kind of did a little 360 from afar, but let's get a closer look at a 360 here. Okay, so right off the bat, here's his weapon. This is weapon storage right here. Just plugs in there. So as we can see, he is a Decepticon Tetrajet with all sorts of weaponry. Little gappy in the back there. It's kind of dark, but yeah, there's his head. There's his head just kind of sitting there. I guess if you really wanted to, you could just leave that position down a little bit more and just completely have his head sticking out. But, you know, of course, the instructions say to have that put up like that. I'll go ahead and reattach this. It does not. It sticks in well, but, you know, you nudge it, and then it easily comes out, which is kind of supposed to, considering it's its weapon. So, yeah. So, overall, a very nice looking Tetrajet. I really like the look of these Tetrajets that they made for the Bumblebee movie, that, you know, the new Seeker mold for the Bumblebee movie. It satisfies that kind of triangular Tetrajet design from G1 while also kind of being a new thing at the exact same time. And honestly, I think that the box art and the product images don't do this thing justice, because when I first saw the images, I wasn't exactly thrilled with it because of all this stuff hanging off the bottom. It's like, yeah, there's just a whole bunch of stuff hanging off the bottom. But honestly, having it in hand, it works better than I thought it would. I mean, speaking of hands, his hands just kind of sticking out there. So I mean, yeah, there are some things that, you know, it could have been done maybe a little bit better, but overall, for what this mold is trying to accomplish, I think it does it very well. And it's always armed and ready for battle. So yeah, a very nice, colorful look, and kind of redesign of a Tetrajet, especially for Starscream. So yeah, really cool vehicle mode. I really like this. I would not. I kind of hope they don't start spamming this, but I would not be opposed to getting a Skywarp or a Thundercracker or an Acid Storm or something like that for this mold. I think there could definitely be too much of a good thing, and so it just for Hasbro's sake, hopefully they get in the next couple of years they actually get some good work done on making more of those movies, so they can make more movie toys to come out with the movie instead of having to release, because Bumblebee came out in December of 2018. It is April of 2021, so 18, 19, 20, 21. So it's been like 3.5 years since Bumblebee came out, and we're just now getting this figure. So yeah, hopefully, the movies will start, getting done, and they'll actually start making them. And get out of the pre-production phase sometime soon, so that way we can actually have movie toys that come out with the movies as they release. So Hasbro will not have to dip into the well so much. And I don't know why he doesn't want to sit up anymore. He was sitting up fine prior to me messing around with him. So I suppose that is a downside to this. Okay, there we go. You kind of have to be finicky with how you pose him because of the odd design. He doesn't always sit up correctly. So anyway, let's get into some comparisons here. We'll start off with Movie 1 Voyager Starscream from Studio Series. So here is his Earth F-22 mode, as opposed to his now, I guess we can just easily say, alternate universe counterpart, that, this Starscream is not this Starscream. I'm fine with that. So in terms of just sheer size, this guy's a little bit bigger because he's got all that stuff hanging off the bottom. It almost looks like, from the front angle, it almost looks like a bird of prey or something, which I really like. I do kind of like that. It has a vulture type look to it, which looks very menacing, which is fitting for a Decepticon jet. And then, of course, just for a fun throwback because of what this guy is based on, here is the original G1 Starscream figure. So, yeah. So that's pretty much all I've got for comparisons in terms of the vehicle mode. We will be looking at a whole bunch of comparisons when we get to the robot mode, but speaking of that, let's get to the transformation. So this guy's got a pretty interesting transformation. We will go ahead and start with peeling his weaponry off of him. Just plop those down as such. Took a look at that a second ago. So now with all of that removed, we are ready to get started. So this is one of those figures where you can kind of start wherever the heck you want, and it doesn't really matter because everything will just kind of fold up into place as you go. So I like to just go ahead and start with the wings, rotate that as such, bend that down, or you can bend that down and then rotate it. The order does not really necessarily matter. And that does get into something cool, is that if you want to have a different, sort of more unique wing design, you can have that, which if they do end up using this mold and start spitting out seekers left and right, then you can give them unique wing formations, which will make them look a little bit more distinct besides just their color schemes. So that's definitely something that you can do if you want to. So now we will come down here. As you may have guessed, these are the arms. And then we can just go ahead and rotate that into place, and it should. There's a snap. Same thing over here. And then little click snap into place. Come up here and start working with the leg. Well, actually, first, before we do that, we probably want to lift that up. There are tabs right along in here that these go into. As you can see, they just connect in there. So we want to lift that up, and then we kind of rotate everything around like so, and then that will give us room to untab these panels. And then we got to separate that in half, And then now we can start working on the legs. So these assemblies fold up really nice, and I really like that. So maybe need to get him, there we go. That should help. So that will fold up like that, and then there we go. And then there is a tab right there that these panels tab into when going into robot mode. So we'll just untab that and bring that down. This is all folded up, so we will want to bring down the foot. Just get that all turned around in there. Bring this up on the hinge. Bring that back, and then we have a leg done. And then we pretty much do the exact same thing over here. Just get this all folded up, brought in, fold down the foot first, and then that will all just snap into there. Turn the leg, and then there we have the legs done. Now with the legs done, let's go ahead and position these wings out like that. And then what we want to do here is, okay, hold on. This is maybe one thing that you want to do before anything else. So this will separate as such. I just want to bring down this nose cone like such. There we are. And then reformat this and just kind of fold it up like such, and then get that brought up. I think we're up all the way. So yeah, we can now bring this down. So things are starting to come together. We'll reposition the wings again. Now these things you don't really have to mess with at all. They're really more just cosmetic. But the instruction, and they're kind of tough, so I don't even know if I'm going to mess with them half the time, but they do sort of kind of complete the look a little bit of having those gears in there. So move arms down, flip out the hands, rotate to get the arms pointed in the direction we want. Same thing with this hand here. Bring that down. And then the last thing we want to do is bring that up on that hinge. Bring that up on that hinge. Kind of get everything positioned right here. And yeah, I think that's it. Yeah. All right. So, all right, here we are. Here we have Cybertronian mode Starscream in his robot mode. And yeah, he is a pretty good looking figure. We'll just bring him up close a little bit. Gonna get a good look at that head sculpt. He looks nice and grumpy. A lot of nice detailing all around on him. Now, an interesting thing about my copy, I haven't seen this noted on anyone else's copy, but you can sort of kind of see it. The purple of the Decepticon sticker sort of kind of rubbed off when it was being painted on or whatever. So it kind of is in the, you can kind of see it, the purple that leached into the lines here. It is not like that over here. So I think that's a my copy only thing. So it's not really, it's not a big deal. It's not, it doesn't break the figure or anything. It's just kind of a, oh, the paint got a little messy there. Oh well, it's not a big deal. But otherwise, I think this figure looks really good. It's got a good design to him, I think. So go ahead and give him his weaponry. So he's got this blaster cannon right here, which he can hold in his hand. Just that little tab there. Plug it into his arm. Now, this does irritate me somewhat, this weapon, is because of the way it's held in his hand and the way his hand, you can see it here with this arm. The hand does not exactly sit completely straight on the arm. It angles down just ever so slightly. It's not a complete straight angle. It just tilts down ever so slightly. And so because of that, the weapon does so as well. So it looks a little funky from certain angles. And so I'm not really a big fan of that, but I mean, that's very much in nitpick territory. So don't really take me seriously when I complain. It's like, oh, the weapon tilts a little funny. Yeah, I mean, that's very much nitpick territory. But it does kind of irk me a little bit just kind of from an aesthetic standpoint. So another thing that sort of kind of irks me that doesn't really affect the figure at all is these things. You know, these are essentially his null rays, and they're equipped very well in vehicle mode. Not so much in robot mode. In robot mode, they just sort of kind of sit on the wings like that, which I think is a little bit of a waste. I mean, yes, in the very brief moments we did see Starscream in the movie, he did not have them plugged onto his arms. But if you're going to go all out and make this, look this much like G1 Starscream, go all the way and put a tab in here so we can put these things in his arms. I mean, drill a hole. I mean, why could you not have a hole in the forearm that then would allow him to have his null rays like that? So I mean, that's just kind of I don't know why you didn't do that when you went 98% of the way to make this look so much like G1 Starscream. But you didn't go the extra 2% and give him a port for his null rays. So that's one of those things about it's studio series, so they try to be as accurate to the model that we see on the film as possible. But at the same time, this Starscream was shown for so little amount of time. I think he only has like 30 seconds of screen time or something like that, if that, in the movie, and he doesn't show up except for the first 5 minutes of the movie at the beginning. So it's like, why? I don't think anyone would. Oh, Starscream didn't plug his null rays onto his arms in the movie. This is inaccurate. I really, really doubt anyone would complain about that. So I mean, if you're going to go through the trouble to make this thing look as G1-y as it is, I mean, just let him put his null rays on his arm. Otherwise, they just kind of hang off. I mean, yes, because I think I remember seeing the CG model with the null rays kind of hanging off like that. So yeah, let there be the option for that if you really want to be that accurate with it. But then also drill a hole in his arm so that way he can attach it, attach the null rays to his arm. Anyway, that's kind of my super nerd, kind of complaint there. It's not really a complaint that doesn't really affect the figure that much. So one detail I like is that the thrusters are just kind of hanging out here on his leg. I think that's really cool. It's accurate to the film because that's the way these Cybertronian Seeker CG models had them, I'm pretty sure. And I think just having the thruster there looks good. It also kind of helps, visually, add in for the fact that the Decepticons can fly. Just adds to that. So it's like, so even in robot mode they can fly because they've got the rocket boosters right there on their feet. I think that's neat. So yeah, overall a very, very good looking figure. Now if you do want to store the weapons, it's obviously that's where his null rays go. But this is really the only weapon storage that the instructions displays, having him holding his gun. Now, if you don't want him holding his gun, there is an option that's not listed in the instructions. And that is if you take this piece here and bring it back, because this is what it plugs into in vehicle mode, you can plug it in right back there. And then there's your extra little bit of weapon storage. Although the blue does sort of kind of hang out back there, and it is obvious. So that's definitely it's up to you whether or not you want to do that. I don't really have a problem with this, and I don't think I want Starscream holding his weapon the entire time when he's going to be displayed on my shelf. So I kind of like that. That's a little workaround. Again, not listed in the instructions, but it is an option if you want to do that. So it's just kind of a little hidden. And who knows, that may have actually been intended and just didn't make it into the instructions. So yeah, there is Starscream. Now we will go ahead and move into the size comparisons. So here we have the original Starscream, the original G1 Starscream, with the original Studio Series Voyager Starscream from the first movie. So a nice looking group of Starscreams, if I do say so myself. I know this is an unpopular opinion, but I really, really like this version of Starscream. for what the first movie was trying to do in terms of robot designs and making them blend in. Because let's face it, I think a red and blue F-22 Raptor like that would stand out a lot more than the typical gray. Because robots in disguise. The whole point is they're supposed to be disguised. Having the G1 Starscream color scheme on this guy would have kind of broken that rule. So I do appreciate, I know a lot of people complain about, oh, they're just big gray blobs running around on screen. I understand that complaint. In terms of the first movie, I don't necessarily understand that complaint, because that's kind of what they were going for in terms of the Decepticons being more disguised. As the movies go on, the Decepticons throw out their disguises a little bit more, and they do get a little more colorful and a little more interesting in their designs, I think. But that's a whole nother discussion for another day. So for what this guy's trying to do, I do think he's a good Starscream design, and also he does maybe not this figure as well as the actual CG model, but he does except for the color scheme, he does retain the classic things that you identify Starscream with. He's got the wings on his back, like these guys, and he's got the cockpit on the chest, like these guys. So he's got chicken legs, he's got really claw-type arms, and he's a little bit of a Dorito shape, but the things that you identify with Starscream are there. So I don't really necessarily, I know this is a tangent, and I apologize, but I don't really see how this guy is any less of a Starscream than Armada or Cybertron or Animated or Prime Starscream. So that is just one of those things about the complaints about the movies I don't really understand. It's like, okay, I can understand just not liking the design, but saying this doesn't look like Starscream. I don't know. Looks like Starscream to me. You can tell this is the same character because of the things they all share in their design. Anyway, so yeah, we'll go ahead and move them off to the side, and now we will bring in Dropkick and Shatter. So they did share about 2.5 seconds worth of screen time together on Cybertron. It's in a blink and you'll miss it. So they look good together. Of course, they're in their Earth form. Starscream here is in his Cybertronian form, but they do look good together. Move them off to the side, and now we will be looking at some comparisons from a different line. Here we have Hot Link from War for Cybertron. So this is the War for Cybertron Siege Seeker mold. And then here we have Earthrise Soundwave. So just a G1E Soundwave, since we saw a very G1E Soundwave in the movie, and then another Cybertronian Seeker mold just to compare it to, direct comparisons. So you can definitely see the things that these guys share in common. They're obviously based off the original, they're both based off of the same design, dating all the way back to 1983 or 1984, whichever release you want to consider. The original Takara releases in Japan, or the original launch of the actual Transformers brand in 1984. So yeah, and considering that this was a Starscream toy that then, like most Seekers, just got repainted, that's almost a direct comparison with the exception of the paint job. Then for a comparison from the other faction, here we have Bumblebee movie Prime, also from Studio Series, of course. So they sort of kind of shared screen time together. They weren't on screen at the same time, but they were in the same scenes together. So there you go. And then, of course, last but not least, for direct comparison, here we have Blitzwing, who we all thought, and when the original trailers came out for Bumblebee, who we thought was Starscream, based on his design. And this is the interesting part of the review, is that when I reviewed this guy a couple months back, I sat on that review, the recording of that review, for a good while. I don't know, maybe like a month and a half. I got him, and then I sat on that footage because I had other videos coming out at the time. So I had it recorded and ready to go. I just like, this isn't really time sensitive. I can really kind of put this up whenever I want to. Now that kind of came back to bite me a little bit, because there was a good 5-minute section where I speculated what they could do, because I've talked, if you can go back and watch that review if you want to, but if you don't necessarily want to, I like this toy. I like this toy a lot. This is a good figure. I was kind of speculating. It's like, if they wanted to do a Starscream version of this guy, I would not be opposed. And considering that it's probably going to be a while before the next Bumblebee the sequel comes out, they might just do that. So, and I'm like, but then the question is, would they, since Starscream only appeared in his Seeker mode and not in his Earth mode, would they redo, would they completely redo this guy, or would they do a heavy remold and make him into the Tetrajet? So by the time I had filmed that review, and by the time I uploaded it, this guy got leaked online. And so all of and I could have kept that stuff in, but I decided to cut it because it was me speculating on stuff that ended up being true. And so I could have played it off as look at how smart I am, but it was kind of a common sense type thing. So, but I ended up cutting it out because it's like, well, that's just 5 minutes I don't need, because as it turns out, that's what happened. Now, what surprised me upon picking this guy up is that these toys are obviously based on the exact same design. Exact same design, not the exact, they're based on the same template. I'll say that. They're based on the same template. And so they share a lot of design qualities. And there are even some very similar parts here. You can just tell that these guys are based off of the same template, and so then they do share a lot of similar parts. However, these guys do not share any parts whatsoever. This is a completely different figure from this figure, and that so very pleasantly surprises me. Just as an interesting factoid is that these transformations are totally different. They have similar pieces, yes, but there's not even remolded pieces. It's not like they. It's like these. Look at the arms. Do you think, oh, the arms are maybe probably something? No, the arms are completely different. These chest pieces, of course, while similarly designed, are different. They are very similarly designed. And they may have even taken this, and they may have even used this as a jumping off point. But it's, just look at, it's completely remolded. It's completely different. So I don't think it's fair to call this guy a remold of this guy, because I think they are totally separate figures, even though they're based on the same designs. Even this thing, because when I saw the initial pictures. It's like, okay, so yeah, they just did a lot of heavy remolding, and and they just kept the same weapon. No, they did not keep the same weapon. They're obviously, again, based off the same design. This thing's bigger. This thing's bigger than this thing is, and the clips are totally different. The clips here are just absolutely totally different. Again, it's based off the same designs, but totally new molding on all of this. So I think if you go and you watch my other Studio Series reviews that I've done, I've always been very, very impressed with the level of detail and the engineering and stuff that has gone on with Studio Series, and this is no exception. The guys that work, or girls, the people, I'm just going to say that. I don't know anyone that actually worked, because that's the thing with Transformers designers is there's like one or two like big names in turn to the toy designers, but I personally don't really keep up with what designers are working on what. So anyway, the people that work on Studio Series are so good. There's a couple ant figures in the line, but most of these figures that I have gotten and purchased, the engineering, the level of detail, everything, they always go above and beyond when it comes to crafting these figures, and this Starscream is no exception. Other lines they may have easily. They might, just because they share so many designs, and I think even back in the day, if 2007, 2008, something like that, they would have absolutely taken this guy, done a remold of the head, given him a closer color scheme to this, like blue on the legs, a little bit more red in the chest, on the the stripes on the wings and stuff. And they would have called it a day, and they would have released this guy again, and maybe they wouldn't have included his little throat ripper outer or whatever, but other than that, that they would have they probably would have just done slight changes to this guy and called it a day, and not even really bothered with the fact that Starscream never showed up in the Bumblebee movie in an Earth form, and he was only in a Cybertronian mode. So this toy is completely different from this toy, even though of course they share a lot of similarities design wise, and I am so impressed by that. I don't know if my expectations were just really low, or if in my brain I just went, oh, they shared, their designs are so close, why wouldn't they use this as a base and just do a heavy remold. The fact that I can't really find one part that these guys share. I mean, even the upper legs are different, because their knees are, Starscream's knees are a little lower than on Blitzwing's knees, and again, similar. So and I mean, again, but the legs have to be different because of how different the transformations are. Because the legs on this figure do such a different thing than the legs on this figure. Here's all the tail flaps and everything. Those get folded up inside Starscream's legs, as opposed to Blitzwing, which they just kind of hang on. So I mean, these are the backpack. The backpack works different. I mean, here's the look at the backpacks. I mean, it's like the closest thing that these guys share is the head sculpts. Is that I think maybe the way that the heads plug in is very similar. Is very similar, and the fact that you can kind of position the tips of the wings how you want. But even then, with Starscream, that's taken to a whole new level, and because of the piece that you flip in and then the rotation. So I mean, and then there's the little flaps here, the little battle skirt flaps here on Blitzwing that are just absent on Starscream. So I'm really impressed with this Starscream. This may be, I don't know, this may be one of my favorite Starscreams I've gotten. I just professed my love for the movie 1 design Starscream, but just the attention to detail and how above and beyond they went in making this figure, when they could have just easily done a heavy remold of this, and the fact that this is a completely new figure that doesn't share any parts at all, I'm just very impressed by. So yeah, I'm definitely recommending this guy, and and my recommendation for this guy stands as well, because these are really good figures. These are really good jet formers that have really this is a little bit more generic of a plain design. I went over that in my review, but they kind of had to do that because of I guess they couldn't get the rights to whatever jet they used in the movie. But this is a wholly original jet design that looks very unique compared to other Cybertronian jets we've seen before, while still fitting the recommendations, not that, the requirements for what you expect out of a Tetrajet. So yeah, so I'm very happy with this Starscream, and he just looks so good. So we'll move Blitzwing out of the way here, and I guess we'll just wrap it up. Yeah, this is an awesome figure. I really like this figure. He looks so good. I mean, honestly, I'm kind of surprised that this is from. I mean, just the design aesthetic. Yes, obviously, there's a lot of cues taken from the original G1 Starscream that they're obviously trying to emulate. But in a lot of ways, it has its own personality. It has its own design language to it, and it's something I loved about the Bumblebee movie, is that the designs are very G1 inspired, yes, but they still adhere to that Michael Bay style of detail, and some might say overcomplicated stuff. It was simplified to a degree because they were using the very simplistic G1 designs, but at the same time, it was all what would a Michael Bay version of G1 Starscream look like? What would a Michael Bay version of G1 Bumblebee look like? And that was kind of the design inspiration they went with the Bumblebee movie, and I love that. I love that so much, because I love the G1 designs. I think every Transformers fan loves the G1 designs, but I'm tired of G1 designs. If we're going to do G1 designs, let's do something new and creative with them, like this. And I know that sounds a little, especially 2-3 weeks ago, as of when you're seeing this, I went over this guy here, the G1 Soundwave, and I applauded him for being such a faithful recreation of G1 Soundwave. And now I'm turning around saying I'm tired of G1 designs. So I mean, I think that is the plight of a lot of Transformers fans, is that we're constantly wanting something new and different, but then you give us the exact same old stuff and we eat it up anyway. So it's kind of So I'm kind of at a crossroads with this because I love this design. I love how G1 it is. I love how unique it is while still being very G1. But at the same time, I'm also going, Hasbro, you need to move away from G1 as a template for everything you're doing, because I think the Bumblebee movie, as much as I praise it for its reinvention and designs and stuff like this, I think it also set a bit of a dangerous precedent that I've maybe talked about a little bit, but not really that much. In that, I think Hasbro is starting to use G1 as a crutch, because Bumblebee comes out, and that was, I think, in production a little bit, started production just a little bit before the War for Cybertron, the new War for Cybertron trilogy started, or they were concurrently, something like that. So, but around that time, Bumblebee came out, War for Cybertron Siege came out, and there is this very, very, very heavy reliance on G1 that we continue to see with Earthrise, and now we're still seeing with Kingdom. Of course, Kingdom is also mixing Beast Wars stuff in there as well. And that's fine. It's like, okay, of course the older collectors, they want their G1 designs. It's not a bad idea to introduce some kids to the classic G1 designs either. But Cyberverse was also G1. I think Cyberverse is kind of a mixed show for me. I think it's mediocre in a lot of ways, but it's awesome in a lot of other ways, and in some ways it's also bad. It's such a mixed bag. But something I really appreciated was some of the new and interesting takes on the characters and their characterizations. Grimlock, for example, being a little bit of a mix of Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, where he's a very well-spoken person in his robot mode, and he transforms into a T-Rex, and he's the classic Grimlock smash. Yeah, me Grimlock, no chicken, me king, that type of stuff. So in that regard, I really appreciated Cyberverse, but the designs were such straight-up G1 designs. I mean, there was a little bit of interpretation and differences made. Like, Bumblebee is a mix between, he's got G1 Bumblebee's head, but on a very closer to movie Bumblebee in terms of design. So, I mean, that's a little different. But then, and Windblade, of course, she doesn't have a G1 version, so she's based off IDW. But Prime, Grimlock, Wheeljack, Ratchet, Megatron, Shockwave, Starscream, down the line, it's like these are the original G1 character designs, just in a slightly different art style. And so I know for a fact that was a mandate from Hasbro. I'm pretty certain that was a mandate from Hasbro, and it's not the design team, just being uninspired. But I would really appreciate it if going forward from Hasbro, because I'm fairly certain that the Bumblebee movie sequel is probably going to keep this aesthetic, which I think is going to be fine considering it's a new universe. You don't want to have an aesthetic like this and then completely change it up for your next movie that's in the same universe, because that would be a little confusing. So I'm pretty sure they're going to keep this kind of more complex versions of the G1 designs, and I'm fine with that. But going forward in the next, I think Cyberverse is going to continue in some form. And so that'll kind of keep the G1 design aesthetic alive as well. But for whatever Hasbro's next thing is after the War for Cybertron trilogy, I don't know if it's going to be another continuation of that. If it's we get the War for Cybertron trilogy and then it's the War for Earth trilogy or something like that, I think they really need to move on from the G1 designs and start coming up with something a little more unique. I mean, yes, you have characters that across the different iterations, like I was talking about with movie one Starscream a minute ago. Yeah, it's a very, very different design, but it still has those things that connects him to the character that makes this is still Starscream. And they've moved so far away from that recently, where they're just doing the G1 designs again. It's like I want a new animated, a new actually a season 4 Transformers animated would be awesome, but a spiritual type of successor to animated, where these designs get very much changed up. We do a lot of unique things with them, but then there's still enough there that they're recognizable as those classic characters. I talked about that a little bit a couple weeks ago when I was looking over Earthrise Soundwave. Or I guess War for Cybertron trilogy, Soundwave, whatever. You know what line he belongs to, probably. Where it is important to keep to to keep to the design so they're recognizable as characters even throughout the different mediums. But there's the proper way to go about that and the incorrect way to go about that. And as much as I do like this design and this toy, bringing it back to the subject at hand, I think we're at a point where right now where I'm this guy looking as G1 as he does may be more of a hindrance than a benefit. So I think we're a couple years. I think we're like maybe 2 years away from really knowing if that will indeed be a problem going forward, or if it's not going to matter at all, because it's only been this is only like the third year in a row where we've had such a reliance on G1. I don't know. I don't want the franchise to become boring for people, because that was part of the problem that caused The Last Knight to fail so bad. Is that it was a bad movie, but also it just did all the exact same tropes that every Michael Bay Transformers movie did, and that was partially why audiences were out on it. It's like, okay, it's just more it's like, oh, secret thing where the Transformers are affecting Earth, and it's like, okay, we're out. So we've seen that 4 times already. So there's one thing in doing it's one thing doing that with your storytelling. It's all but it's also another where you're doing that with your designs. And so as much as I love this and I think it's cool, I really hope that they do iterate and they come up with some more unique designs going forward. Because again, say what you will about the movie's designs from the original the first 5 Michael Bay movies, but at least they have their own personalities and distinct characteristics, while also tying them to the original characters. In most cases, there are a couple instances for sure where it's like, this doesn't look like anything like the original version of the character, and that's fair. But in a lot of cases, Optimus, Bumblebee had enough of the similar characteristics. He was a yellow vehicle. Ratchet was an ambulance. Ironhide was, he changed from a van to a truck, but he was still this kind of white, heavy weapons guy, demolitions guy. So there was enough of those characteristics there that it worked and it fit. So I just really hope that going forward they don't stick so rigidly to the G1 designs as much as I love them, because if Transformers is going to survive for the next it's already been around for 30 years, but if it's going to survive for another 30 years, I think it definitely needs to transform into and continue to evolve, so to speak. So I know I went off on a big tangent there at the end, but I looked over when I was prepping for this review. I was looking over a lot of the figures that I bought recently, and a lot of the figures that have been available recently, and what even Studio Series has been moving towards with doing, because now Studio Series is even going full on G1, because not only do they have these obviously inspired by but still different G1 designs, they're doing straight up G1 designs with with stuff from the '86 movie, with Cup and Hot Rod and Blur and Jazz, and I'm again, me as a Transformers fan, I'm tempted by this. Like, ooh, I don't have a Cup figure, I don't have a classic G1 Blur figure, I don't have a classic G1 Jazz figure, so I'm tempted by that. But but they can't keep dangling these exact same things out in front of us, like a carrot, and expect us to buy them, because eventually they're. So I just need to stop, because then that's going to get me into a whole nother tangent about other franchises that do that. Star Wars, we're going to be here all night, so I need to wrap this up. So yeah, good figure. I recommend them. Just hopefully they don't the designs of Transformers start becoming unique again, because that could be worrisome in the future for me. So yeah, anyway, so that will be it for this review. Please remember to like, comment, subscribe, all that great stuff. Remember to follow me on Twitter and Instagram. Those links are in the description below, and I'll see you guys next time. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.